Imagine this. It's the summer of 1518. You're living in Stansburg, a perfectly normal medieval town. People are going about their day, minding their business, when suddenly one woman walks into the street and starts dancing. Okay, weird, but fine. Maybe she's happy, except she doesn't stop. Not after an hour, not after a day, not after a week. And then her neighbor starts dancing too. And then more people and more. Until hundreds of people are convulsing, stomping, and twirling through the streets uncontrollably for 2 straight months. This is not a festival. This was not a party. People were dying. Welcome to the Dancing Plague of 1518. Possibly the strangest, most baffling, and most cursed events in all of human history. What's up, everyone? Welcome to my channel, The Curious Being, where we dig up the weirdest corners of history and ask, what on earth was going on? Today's story has everything: mass hysteria, medieval medicine, a guy who genuinely thought the cure for uncontrollable dancing was more dancing, and a mystery that historians, doctors, and scientists still haven't solved. Let's get into it. It begins on a hot July day in 1518 in Salzburg, which at the time was part of the Holy Roman Empire in what is now the northeastern France. A woman named Freotorfine, I don't know if I named that right, but I'm just gonna write it, steps into the street and began to dance. No music, no audience, no apparent reason. She danced to the afternoon, to the night, to the next morning, and she's still going. Her feet are bleeding, her legs are trembling, but she cannot stop. By the end of the week, 30 fewer people have joined her, and by the end of the month, 400 people were dancing to the streets of Salzburg. Now, before you imagine some fun medieval flash mob, let me paint you the actual image. These people are not smiling. They're not having a good time. Many are weeping, some are screaming, their muscles are spamming beyond their control. The dancing is fracturing, exhausting, desperate. People are collapsing from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer physical exhaustion. Witness reports seeing people dance until they literally die. So yeah, less Coachella and more nightmare. Here where it get even better or weirder, because Salzburg's response to this crisis is arguably worse than the crisis itself. The city official calls in doctors. The doctor examine the dancer and deliver their diagnosis. Hot blood. That's it, hot blood. The dancer, they conclude, have too much hot blood, a perfectly real medicine condition that definitely exists. And the treatment is, of course, obvious. More dancing. Their logic: if the people were forced to stop, the hot blood would just build up and cause even more damage. The only way out was true. So, what does the city of Salzburg do? They hire magician, they build a stage, they bring in professional dancer to keep the afflicted company. They even rent out two of the city's girls' hall, essentially clearing out the venue and saying, alright everyone, this is the dance floor now, go nuts. You have to imagine the city council meeting where this was agreed upon. It would have been something like this. They would be like, okay, gentlemen, 100 of our citizens are dancing themselves to death. And right. So we should hire a bandit, right? Obviously. Unsurprisingly, the music and more dancing approach did not work. The plague got even worse. Eventually, the city reversed course. They fired the musician, banned dancing and music altogether to other city, and turned to the church for answer. The church had a theory: the dancers were cursed. Especially, they believed the afflicted had earned the wrath of Saint Petrus, the patron saint of dancers. Ironically, the cure was to make a pilgrimage to his shrine in a nearby town called Severin. The dancers were loaded onto carts, still twitching, and hauled off to the shrine, where priests performed rituals and handed out red shoes that had been blessed by the saint. Red shoes, which again is the thing you wear to dance. And if you guys are familiar with that red suit dancing story, I think it is based on real event. It used to be my favorite story when I was little. Anyway, let's continue. It's unclear whether the shrine actually worked or whether the epidemic was simply burning itself out by the point. But by September 1518, about 2 months after it began, the dancing had stopped. And then just like that, it was over. And nobody really know why it started. So what actually happened? This is the part historians and scientists has been arguing about for centuries, and honestly the debate is still going on. Theory 1 was ergot poisoning. The most popular scientific explanation is ergotism, a condition caused by a fungus called Clevens Purpura that grows on wet grains, especially rye, which was a staple food in medieval Europe, contains compounds of chemically similar to LSD. Eating contaminated bread can cause hallucination, compulsion, and burning sensation in the limbs, and involuntary muscle spasms. Sounds familiar, right? The problem is ergot poisoning typically doesn't cause coordinated dancing. It caused seizures. The afflicted weren't just spanning randomly. Witnesses described something that looked like actual dancing, so ergot might explain some symptoms, but probably not the full picture. The theory through was mass psychogenic illness. This is what most modern scholars lean toward, and it has a much more longer name that sounds impressive. Mass psychogenic illness, or what used to be called mass hysteria. The problem is that in compounds of extreme stress, fear, or trauma, psychological distress can literally manifest as physical symptoms, and those symptoms can spread to a community like a social coagulation. In 1580, Stanford was extremely stressed. The city had just endured years of famine, disease, and plagues. People were desperate, exhausted, and terrified. Many believed they were living through the end times. In that environment, when one person had a psychological break and started dancing, the behavior triggered something in others, especially when authorities responded by validating it, building stages, and hiring musicians. The city essentially said, yes, this is a real physical thing that is happening to people, which gave us the psychological permission to experience it too. Theory third and the last theory was a religious cult or a group ritual. Some historians think the whole thing might have been a semi-intentional religious expression, a kind of ascetic ritual that spilled out of control. Several contemporary accounts describe the dancer crying out the names of saints, which suggests religious fervor rather than purely involuntary movement. The honest answer would be it was probably mixed of all three. Extreme stress, religious fear, possible ergot contamination, and a society that had absolutely no framework for understanding what was happening. The Dancing Plague of 1580 is one of those events that seem almost too strange to be real, and yet we have detailed chronicles, city records, and physician accounts all confirming it happened exactly as described. And what makes it generally haunting is in the weirdness and what it says about human mind under pressure. When people are frightened enough, desperate enough, or uncertain enough, the body can do things we can barely explain. Symptoms spreads, behavior spreads, and belief spreads. We like to think we are so different from those medieval villagers, loading sick dancers onto the cart and shipping them off to a shrine. But mass psychogenic illness is a medieval problem. It's been documented in scholars, factories, and communities all the way into the 21st century. The plague may have stopped, the mystery never did. If you made it this far, please don't start dancing uncontrollably in the comments. But do leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what weird historical event you want me to cover next. There are a lot of them, trust me. So, see you next time.